Welcome, everybody, to the Tea with Ms McGill Show, presented by Fortune Bay Resort and Casino. It is Puka. It is our special guest. It's the star of the show, Reed Larson. We're going to get right into it tonight because we got lots going on. I think you guys would both agree it's AC season. So if you need the AC tuned up or you need a new AC unit, Aspire Heating Control is who you're calling. They're your local dealer. Local Bryant dealer and the official heating and cooling company of your Minnesota Wild, specializing in gas, electric, and hydronic heating and cooling systems for existing and new construction, residential and commercial installations available, forced air systems, boilers, heat pumps, and mini splits. They are, of course, licensed and bonded. So give Justin a call, 218-999-5957, 999-5957. We're very honored to have Coach Grant Clafton. I don't know if he's coaching this year, but if he is, he's already up for Coach of the Year. I'm going to put that out there right away. So we'll have Reed kick it off. Here we go.
There's a lot of different directions we're going to try to go to here today, but this is since we get the opportunity to get Grant here, we'll throw a couple of plugs in there too as well for a couple of the different things that Grant does here in the community as far as getting some guys on the skating treadmill. We'll talk about that for a little bit. We'll talk about some of the camps that we get going just to give them some free plugs here. And then we'll get into talking about how you got to be Coach Grant Clafton. And that obviously starts with youth hockey. So talk about how you got started here. I know you're a Grand Rapids grad and alumni, but talk about how you got started.
I think probably like any kid, your dad or, parent has a pretty big influence on it. And my dad certainly did for me. And, obviously I don't remember, but, he was a goalie here in Grand Rapids, when he was in high school. And I know when I was younger, he put cardboard on me and throw tennis balls at me at a really
he wanted you to be a goalie.
Yeah, I actually was a goalie.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, for a while until squirts and and then I think I probably didn't have the stomach for it and couldn't handle the failure of letting in 9 or whatnot. I think he could see that and it was probably best for me to start skating a little bit better.
Well, good. So you got into a short stint as a goaltender and then got into the Graha Youth Hockey Association and went on through, played your years through Grand Rapids Youth Hockey and into Grand Rapids High School Hockey. What year did you graduate, Grant?
I graduated in 2001.
So I had an opportunity to play with the guys that graduated in 99. I was a 97 grad, so I just missed you by a couple of years to be able to play with you. But you had a couple of good teams there in do you have 4 years or 3 that you played at high school? Did you play as a freshman or a sophomore?
No, I did 3 years of high school only. I mean, our youth hockey experience was obviously awesome growing up in this town and having opportunities that we had and all the outdoor rink stuff. I mean, you sit here and you really date yourself back. It feels like yesterday, but things have changed quite 100%. A bit. I mean, I remember, we practiced every day outside and got to play a Saturday game, and we didn't get to come inside until you got into peewees and started doing the travel hockey. And, that was kind of the grassroots of it. And I mean, we had an outdoor rink in our yard growing up from the time I was 3 years old to the time that I graduated high school. And when we were done at Southwest, we'd usually end up coming over to our house and having big neighborhood games. And, and I mean, it just carried out because, again, it's the great thing about small town hockey. We grew up, every one of us on our team, we had good youth hockey success. I think we went to the state tournament, every second year, I believe. You move up and do your first year and then second year. So every second year of Pee Wee, we went to the state, and second year of Bantam, we went to state. And yeah, so that didn't have great end results in the state tournament, but
yeah,
maybe Reed made that prediction. If you remember that, maybe we were supposed to run through all the talent like Green Durham Hall and O2 barbecue.
Yeah,
but I had to work that in there because I talked to Brett Bart on the way here from Andover, and he's an avid listener to your show.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, okay, Brett. He'd really like to sneak that in there. So
O2 barbecue.
That couldn't have worked.
Well, Brett, you got yourself your little plug there. We're not going to be looking for any O2 barbecue opportunities like that when Rapids gets the opportunity to go again. That means that Andover doesn't. So that'll be a happy day.
Shots
Be a happy day. At any rate, let's move forward here a little bit and talk about, high school experience. Were there any state tournament? I know the answer to this, but were there any state tournament bursts in your years at the high school group, and why or why not?
No, there was not. And in fact, it's actually really interesting. Like, obviously I'll plug Greenway here a little bit too. I still got a little bit of green blood there. We played them all the way up through youth hockey and did considerably well against them until Bantams, and things really started the gap really closed. The scores really became close. We ended up splitting with them. And then for my 3 years of high school hockey, we never beat Greenway one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was with the Geyers. I know that I'm thinking it.
Obviously, Gino and Andy and Adam Johnson, Bo Geisler, Marco, I think, was there for a while.
Those were some tough teams.
Yeah, Josh Miskey.
That was the whole drop line right to UMD. Everyone mentioned except for Gino and Andy.
And they were quite good all the way through. And obviously they got a state tournament opportunity in 2000 and represented well.
Yeah. So there was a little frame of time there again where there was, I think it started where there was some ups and downs, where it was Grand Rapids and then it was Greenway and then it was Rapids and Greenway. And there was a time frame there in the 90s where Rapids struggled with Greenway. And I remember some of the first years that started to happen through my high school career in 1996, 95, 96. Mm-hmm. We go on a 13-game winning streak, and Greenway's coming to the house. And of course, our student section's getting really excited. They're putting up signs 13-0, 13-0. And it's not looking so good at the end of the game. Greenway is beating the crap out of us. And they just got chicken scratch with another piece of paper and hung up 13-1. And they knocked us off. And actually, lo and behold, they were the team to knock us off in the semifinals over in Hibbing, and DJ Hill scores the game winner. It was a 2-1 game. And those were some tough years. And Greenway was really good those years. So good plug. And it seemed like it continued through that time frame.
Well, I think, again, you date yourself and you say back then, but I mean, when you were talking about teams in that era, Hibbing was top notch, Rapids top notch, Greenway top notch, Virginia top. I mean, you had teams, the Eveleth. I mean, they were all a lot of parity between all of them.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because then the next year, my senior year, then we ended up losing to Duluth East in the semifinals that year, and Hibbing and Duluth East played in the finals. And Duluth East won. So the only year I actually made it to the section finals in my sophomore year was Rapids and Duluth East. So, but some interesting ties to the Iron Range, which we'll get into. We'll talk about some other stuff once we get through his college experience. We'll talk about some time in Hibbing, some time in Rapids, some time in Greenway, and some time to think and reflect, which is what we're doing now with alongside of all your elite league stuff. And so shifting on to some junior hockey, you played some junior just after high school. Where did you go?
I played 2 years in Omaha for the Lancers.
Lancers and a familiar coach there.
In Mike Hastings.
Yeah,
he was. Yep. Mike Hastings was the coach there. So I went from Coach Hastings to Craig Dahl for 2 years, and then got to have Coach Motzko for his start of his college career at St. Cloud.
St. Cloud State.
Well, let's go back to the junior thing. But they still selling out back then? Still could be your place to play? Omaha?
So I went through the transition with the arena. My first year in Omaha, they played at XR Ben, which is Nebraska spelled backwards.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was literally a barn, and we didn't play a home game for like the first 9 months or the first whole month of October or whatever, because the rodeo was in town. So I think they, I don't know if it was designed that way, but it actually worked out pretty well, because you're new to the city. It's a new team, a new group of guys. And we spent the whole month of October on the road and
the bus,
on the bus,
hotels and
legendary bus rides,
a lot of good bonding experiences there. But certainly a great experience down there and playing in that league and getting the opportunity to play for Coach Hastings.
So was Thunder Bay still in the league then?
No.
Oh, okay. Imagine that ride.
No.
Omaha to Thunder Bay.
I think we did a ride to Chicago. That wasn't, you know, a quick jaunt by any stretch. And Green Bay was a good trek for sure. And then, you know, my second year, you know, I played limited games because I got hurt 3 games into the season. I broke my jaw and was wired shut for, you know, 8 weeks or something. And then unbeknownst to me, I got the flu like immediately after, which was kind of a blessing in disguise, in the fact that really good I didn't get it while I had it wired shut. But after I did get it, you know, I thought the big thing was eating, right? Like I was blending spaghetti, blending Chef Boyardee ravioli, you know, cranberry juice was a big thing. Tomato soup with Worcester sauce was huge. And I mean, that was just great to have. But when I got them off, I was so excited to I'm going to Taco Bell. Or back then, actually, what they had Fazoli's. So that was great, the chicken parm. And I thought, I'm going to go down there. Well, it's very similar to like if you lay on your hand for an extended period of time, it gets very stiff, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got them off, and I was like, they're off, but I can't open my mouth still. What's going on here? Well, it was so tight.
Sure.
So 3 days later, I got sick and like was forced to open it up.
The vomiting makes you open your mouth.
And then I was able to start eating again.
Well, it sounds like a great era in the USHL during that time frame. So a couple of years at junior hockey, 1 or 2 years, two, and then off to St. Cloud State, and you had Craig Dahl there at the beginning, and then when Bob Motzko came in after CD decided to retire. And how was that experience? Any trips to NCAA tournament times or?
Yeah, we went to the NCAA tournament my senior year, and we played Maine, and we had Bobby Gefford, right, our goalie, and he was all world and the savior for us. And Andreas Nodal, who had a tremendous freshman year. I think he had 40 points, Ryan Lash, guys like that. And, you know, as freshmen, they really carried the mail quite a bit, obviously, and went on to have, you know, pretty high-end successful careers later on.
Did you book one of the Marvins around that time? Was Marvin there?
No, Aaron Marvin was after me. From Warroad. But
see if you brought you on any fishing trips. You know,
I have gone on a fishing trip with.
I mean, they can't get enough of it up there.
Best places to go up there.
Yeah, but we did go to the NCAA tournament my senior year and played Maine out in Rochester, and you know that was the first trip that our class made, you know, through our 4 years there. And, you know, we were kind of picked to do pretty well out there. And I remember Justin Fletcher scored and we were up 1-0 after the first, and Ben Bishop was the goalie for Maine. And we're feeling pretty good. We've had a good, successful season and things were trending well, and it didn't end that way. it ended 6-1, and that was the end of that.
So that would have been 02, 06?
07.
07.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a successful career into St. Cloud State and college hockey. And, you know, just in our little pre-chat here, something I didn't know is that you went off right after college and spent a little bit of time playing some professional hockey. Where did you end up going after St. Cloud State?
I'm reluctant to call that level professional. I guess, yeah. I played, after we had lost to Maine, there was, you know, the gap where there's the end of the year, and you know, if you got a couple credits short or whatever, and online, it was starting to be pretty, you know, just kind of getting going or whatever around that time. So I think I had like an art class left or something. And I ended up going to Utah for the end of that season. And I think I played like 6 games there. Andy Sertich was there. So nice familiar face to get going. And that was a fun experience. My second game there, you know, second game in Utah, I got hit and broke my orbital bone.
Ooh,
and so I was new there and ended up having surgery on my orbital bone, but I did play 2 days later.
Ouch.
But I went from a face mask in college to no face mask, and that lasted all of 2 days. So then I had to go back to the high tech and finish out the time there. And
So that's Utah Grizzlies,
yeah,
and that's a pretty big sell in town, right?
it was, and then they had a great arena. They built it for like the Olympics, when they're in Utah. So they had a super nice rink, and
you play on Olympic ice?
I don't even remember.
Oh, okay.
So the league that you played in was what league?
It was the Coast.
The East Coast League.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and for the listeners that don't know, at the time frame, you've got the NHL, the AHL, and the East Coast League.
And maybe the IHL with the AHL at that time.
The I think at the time,
I think it was the UH.
they did have the U-Haul.
Oh yeah, okay.
Like
Yeah,
Quad
that
City
was
and
below
stuff
the
like
coast.
Yep. Okay.
But there was some again combination of the IHL and the U-Haul and doing stuff like that. And then of course the U-Haul ended up going bye-bye, and a lot of people ended up going overseas, which sounded like there could have been a few opportunities to go overseas to play.
Yeah, well, after Utah, I went back and ended up committing or signing or whatever to go to them to start that year. They ended up they got affiliated with the Islanders that year, and they ended up bumping a lot of guys down, and I ended up getting waived like 3 weeks into the tryout or 2 weeks, so I didn't have a place to play.
Sure.
Right. So I came home, started my trek to the casino and Taco John's.
What happened to the art class? I could see you just loving the art class.
Yeah, I got through it, graduated. And so, so I ended up doing the casino runs, living at home. You win, you go to Taco John's. You don't win, you go home, and just kind of waiting for things to play out, for someone to need a player or whatnot. And ended up going to Corpus Christi by about mid-November and played down there. And Gino Parrish was there, another Husky, and he actually picked me up at the airport, if I remember correctly, and I got to know him pretty well, and certainly a character in himself, a good guy, and fun to be around, just really fun to be around, and good type of leader, I mean,
Jefferson kid?
Yeah. And I think he was 33 and I was 23 at the time. So, you know the name, obviously, and he played at St. Cloud, and it's like, how long ago, but so that was a good time. And I mean, that's when like things kind of, the old career started coming to a halt there, and we were playing in Laredo. Actually, funny story about that. We were in Laredo, and I remember staying down there, and that's really close to Laredo Nuevo, which is by the border. And I remember like the drug cartels were really kind of going on at the time, and for whatever reason in that time frame, that seemed to be a big thing or whatever. And you don't go outside after dark, or they kind of kept you protected. And we were off in a decent little nice hotel or whatever. And I remember turning on the news, and I called my mom and I was like, "Hey, turn on the news." And she turned it on, and they're talking about it. And I said, "I'm there. Like, I'm literally here.
I'm there, Mom."
Yeah. And not that particular game, but just I bring up Laredo because it reminds me of that. But when we were playing at home, in Corpus Christi, I got hit from behind, and this is where the stories really get kind of fun. I got hit from behind, and it really was my fault. I mean, I did a power turn to the wall, and the kid coming to hit me just hit it at the perfect time, and I hit perfectly into the wall and didn't get up, and I wanted to, but I really couldn't get up. And they came out and got me off the ice, and a lot of my friends have heard this story and laugh about it, but because it's funny now, because thankfully nothing.
Yeah, thankfully you didn't get paralyzed.
But anyway, you come off the ice, and I get picked up, and my arm, they're basically holding me up, skating me off the ice. And I remember the trainer saying, "Yeah, I think you pulled your lats." And I was like, "I don't think so." Like, I'm hanging there like that, and I go, "Something's wrong," because then I started getting spasms or whatever in my back, and so I said, "There's something's wrong," and I couldn't move. I mean, I wasn't any type of paralysis or anything like that, but it was so like tense, my whole body felt like it was flexed.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding you, the Ice Ray mascot carried me down the hallway to a GMC 96 Jimmy, loaded me in it, took me to Corpus Christi Hospital. And I remember sitting there, and the doctor was just this little Hawaiian gal, and she was so sweet and nice, and she was being really nice to me, and they had me on the table and whatever. And all of a sudden I hear her start yelling, like just screaming at the guy, at the trainer, and you never do that. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? She comes in and she's like, honey, you have a broken neck. And I'm like, oh, lovely.
You should not.
So now I got this. Now I'm like, oh boy, like, what does that mean?
Big,
And she goes, we're going to transport you into ICU and do all this type of stuff, or, whatever, wherever they do that, like, and yeah, she and I ended up having a fracture, and they had to take x-rays and stuff like that, and it was C7 fracture. And I remember being in the x-ray machine, and they gave me morphine, and you can feel morphine come throughout your body, and I'm laying there all by myself, waiting for this x-ray, and I can feel it coming through. And I started yelling, I'm paralyzed. Because I could feel the numbness and going down, and she goes, no, that's just the morphine. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, no. So then they transferred me to Corpus Christi Spawn or whatever, and I ended up staying there for, I think it was three days. I ended up staying there, and I remember getting there, and I don't know how like descriptive we can be here, but I remember getting there, and I had to go to the bathroom. Right. But they didn't want to let me get up. You know what I mean? And I was trying to convince the guy to just tilt the board and just let me go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't having that.
No.
And I just wanted to avoid the catheter by all means. So we're kind of waiting, and he's like giving me a second to like see if I could go, but it wouldn't come out. I wanted it to, but it wouldn't. Yeah. And so they're waiting, and they're trying to make this decision, and all of a sudden this guy comes in, and I hear the screaming, and he was in a car crash, and they had to put a catheter in him, but he was screaming like ungodly, and I go, geez, it really hurts that bad? And he goes, nah, he's got the drip, so it's not that bad. It's not good either. So he had some other issues going on, but nonetheless, I didn't avoid that either. So ended up doing that, and that was it. And that was pretty much the end of my skating, and just not being able to give it up. I tried to come back in October the following year, and actually Kurt Kleinendorf, who was with New Jersey at the time, got me a chance to go out to Trenton, where I spent about a month and a half, never played a game, never skated, in fact, for a month and a half, because I couldn't pass the physical. Came home, and kind of had a chance in the second league and in Germany, and thought I'd just go out there and kind of close it out. And everybody talks about Europe, and I ended up not going, kind of a chicken out. I didn't know if I'd go over there and make it, and I didn't want to get stuck over there, and and not, I had a lot of anxiety and stuff like that. So ended up, packing her in and coming home, and got into coaching.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, just before we carry on here, I got to do a quick ad read here. So I want to talk about our friends over at the Ring Sports Bar and Grill, just down from the Hockey Hall of Fame in Eveleth. And we told you all winter to buy those gift cards. Remember, read the gift card deal. So now's the time to use your gift card, breakfast, lunch, dinner, full bar, full menu, Friday fish fry, of course, daily specials, very hockey themed. If you haven't been there, go check it out. It's a great place. Michelle will take good care of you. 248-8582. You can order ahead, or you can go to the ringsportsbarandgrill.com. They've got the breakout rooms we've talked about. So if you got any kind of banquets, wedding reception, anything like that, you can check them out too. So the Ring Sports Bar and Grill over in Eveleth.
Great spot. Again, about a pitching wedge shot from the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Just down.
Yeah, exactly. From the hockey. I like to say from 5 seasons there. That's kind of my Harley Davidson shop that I like to go to. But at any rate, so the playing's done. Career is changing. You start a big boy job, and you're in the area, and you bump into some old friends that played with your dad.
Yeah, the DeCenzos, Mark and Pete were coaching there at the time. And actually in the gapping between when I was still trying to play and trying to decide, I think it was 2008, I skated captain's practice with them, and Nick was a 10th, Nick, Mark's son, was a 10th grader. Jammer was a senior. Ryan Johnson was there. Hanno, the infamous Hanno.
Well, everyone knows Hanno.
Not him, famous Hanno. He's very, very famous.
So it'll be interesting.
Coach Hanno now.
Coach Hanno.
It'll be interesting when we start digging into this, because now we'll hear if it's Hibbing Chisholm or Chisholm Hibbing. He likes to say Chisholm first, but okay.
It was Hibbing Chisholm.
Okay. All right. Now we got
In fact, I there was a reason why there was no red in the jersey.
Yeah, well, yeah. The girls have the red, I noticed, but the boys don't. Well, just like the Grand Rapids Greenway Lightning, there's some green there, but
yeah.
Well, Hajduk, he makes sure he puts the green in there now. We'll see that. I've got a jersey in here. He makes it really proud. So you had some time, you started in, you skated some captain's practice there.
Yeah.
And then found yourself, I think, in the pre-chat coaching in 2 different places.
Yeah, basically volunteering with Mark, and I ended up coaching in Rapids. So the first year I coached, I assisted Mark in Hibbing as a volunteer, and coached Rapids Bantams in Grand Rapids the same year. So basically I'd go to work, go to Hibbing practice, come home, eat, and then it worked out good for practices in Rapids, because they didn't start until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So then you get done and start it all over again. And back then, like, teams kind of traveled together too, right? So Rapids had their schedule built around, Bantams followed the high school team. Hibbing and Rapids were trading off with like Warroad and Roseau.
Yep.
And so it kind of really worked out. So you'd coach Hibbing and then go to Roseau and do the Bantam stuff. And yeah, it was a awesome experience, and got to meet some great kids, obviously.
Well, that's kind of where a lot of I mean, I'll say it. You're a humble enough guy that you won't say this, but a lot of some of these big timers that we see playing right now that had some really successful high school, colleges, career, and now professionals, a few of them were on your Bantam team there in Grand Rapids. Some of them played for you in Hibbing as well too. But just to name a few on that Bantam team in Rapids, you had guys like Avery Peterson, Hunter Shepard, who just wins the Calder Cup, an MVP. A couple of those guys that played on there was Jay Bischoff on that squad as well too.
Yep.
So this is a group now of guys that played as peewees in the state tournament back in like 07, 08. And then again, a couple of years later, they're playing in the state Bantam A tournament, and Grant is a part of that program and apparently made it to a state tournament there as well.
With the Rapids Bantams?
Yes.
Yeah, we came up a little short with Woodbury in that season, in the title game. And if I'm correct, I believe we lost 2-1, and Jake Gensel had a thing in that. So,
never heard of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But that was obviously a fun experience. Great group of kids. They've gone and had great careers, and great hockey players, but they're fantastic human beings. I still have a pretty good relationship with quite a few of them, and yeah, I mean, it's just, you'd love to see them have that kind of success.
Oh, no question about it. So success coming from that Grand Rapids Bantam A team. At the same time, you're coaching in Hibbing, and that stint at Hibbing lasted how many years?
6 or 7 years. I think we went to the state tournament in
2011.
Adam Johnson was a 10th grader. Nick was a senior that year, I believe.
Mike Petrovnik.
Mike Petrovnik, Joey
Bessel.
Anderson, Bessel was a 10th grader.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We had those guys, and I think we finished 4th. We beat Lourdes.
Up here. Oh, Jake Doherty.
Jake
Captain,
Doherty,
yeah.
and then lost to Hermantown, and that might have been where my Hermantown despise began.
That could very well.
That was a great game though, because that was they're always up 1, but then
They
Well,
were
that's the
they
game
went
that-
up a couple.
yeah, that was the game that put Adam on the map.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everyone what happened to Adam that game?
Yeah, Adam had a highlight. We were down by 2 goals, and it just, in typical Hermantown fashion, we were down and it was bam, bam, bam. And I think we were down 3 or 4 to 1 real quick. And then Adam decided to introduce himself to everybody and had quite the game. And we got pretty close, ended up short. And I don't know. I think what did Hermantown go on to St. Thomas Academy?
Yeah.
This was 2011.
Yeah.
What you're saying? Yeah, I can go back to where I was in 2011. I was in Wilmer, and we lost on the section finals to Alexandria. So they went 1 and done, or 0-2 barbecue in the tournament that year. But so we almost met up in the tournament that year had we not dropped it to Alexandria in the section finals.
Do you remember? Let's give Jake some praise. Do you remember when Jake Lords, that first game that night, steps out of the penalty box?
Doherty?
Yeah. Puck half is on his stick.
Half breakaway and drilled it. I do.
Puts her to the shelf. Jake, there's your shout out. I know you're a listener.
Yeah, he did. That was a good goal for him. He's a good player for us.
Yeah, that was a good group. I mean, who'd you beat to get there? Marshall?
Virginia.
Oh,
in fact, we had Trump. I mean, can't forget Trump because he was a huge part of it. But I do remember, and I know Garrett listens, but we beat them 5-1, and I mean they were the favorite for sure. Yeah, and Garrett came down, and
first shift of the game
had a breakaway. And Trump shut the door on him, and it was kind of, we kind of took off after that, and were able to.
That was a battle for about 5 years in a row.
Virginia beat
back
us
and forth. They won in 10
quite often,
and they won in 9.
Yeah.
So, and I think they won in 5. So 5, 9, 10, and then it was section finals for 3-4 years in a row. Hibbing versus Virginia in the section finals, and then you guys go in 11. That was Keith Hendrickson's last year, and then I came in the next year at Virginia.
Yeah, I think Hibbing, the year before we played Hibbing too in the final. Right, I think Mark went to the state section or the section final some ridiculous amount of times in a row.
Yeah,
like it was 8 or 9 times.
Well, because it was you and Marshall a bunch of times. Hibbing and Marshall.
But Virginia beat us. I know the year before.
Yep,
I am pretty sure.
Yeah, that would have been Ryan Johnson senior.
Ryan senior. Yeah. Hibbing got us, or Virginia beat us pretty badly. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So you spent that amount of time in Hibbing, stopped coaching in Hibbing, ended up back in the Grand Rapids Youth Association for a couple of years, high school for a year, came back and helped with the Pee-wees for a year. And then another opportunity opened up over in Coleraine.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of came out of nowhere, but, I had an itch to, be a head coach and kind of try to, run with a program a little bit. And, they put in a lot of work over there to get where they were. And, the opportunity kind of came, and, certainly knew what they had coming up from being able to play, coach Rapids youth hockey teams against them. And they were pretty good with Ben and Dante and, Nikolai Ryla and guys, Christian Miller, Trebojevic, they were all there. And I took that opportunity, and, absolutely one of the best experience of my life. The 5 years I had over there.
That many years, huh?
That many years.
Yeah, it was 5 and it went by quick. But I remember actually you and I having a couple of conversations, because I was currently at Virginia and you were making a decision on whether or not you're going to take that job. And we talked a couple of times about it. And then obviously you took the position, and we faced off a bunch of times and played. And I can probably count once or twice. And we had 2 meetings every single year for, I think we only played against you. I was there 4 years while you were there for 5. I think we played probably 8 times. And I think when I was coach, we only beat you 1 time.
I'll challenge that. I think it was 0. And I don't know that. They got us once.
One time in Virginia at the minors, and I think it was either 17 or it was 16. But
Get
there was
on
the
the
one
hockey.
year.
Get on a-
Yeah, there was one time.
I'll tell you this is the best Reed Larson coaching against story I ever had.
Do the story, and then we
I'm gonna
can
hear
cut
it.
for a break.
This
okay?
is the best story ever regarding Reed because it shows the character of you as a human being.
Absolutely.
And it was in the section semifinal, and you were up 1-0 after first. You had Jake Seitz. You had a tremendous year. You had a great team that year. And I believe Ben blew a tire. He had a bad skate, and it was affecting him. It was either Ben or it was Ben. I'm almost positive it was. And I remember like talking with the Surdy. I was like, hey, we don't have a sharpener. We don't have a sharpener. So anyway, Surdy ended up getting us a sharpener after this, but we didn't have a sharpener. And I asked, Reed had one. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And he came out, and Virginia's got the lead. And I said, hey, do you, if you want to say no, I get it, but we need a skate sharpened. And I think Strooks did it.
Strooks did it. And he was the guy that sharpened all our skates. And the guy, when anything that Strooks ever did, he wanted to make sure he was the best at whatever he did.
Yeah.
And that was one thing, I'll tell you what, the guy could sharpen a heck of a skate.
Well, it must have did a good job, because after that, I said, Reed, I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for doing this. And he goes, hey, no problem, Grant. You'd have done it for me. And I walked away, and I was like, not a chance. and the game ended in our favor pretty drastically.
Yeah, after the first period, you guys took a handle, and I think Nikolai Ryla had the game of his life that night.
He had a great tournament.
Yeah,
section tournament. Yeah, and I do remember that. Like I'd like to believe I would have done that for you, Reed, but I don't know, man.
Maybe not.
If it was Jake Seitz skates, I would have done it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think that was my last year there too, because we lost in the semifinals to you guys that last year, and you guys went on to play Hermantown.
That was the year we lost in double overtime.
Yeah, in 17-18.
Yeah.
All right, just real quick, I played with Jake Seitz a couple weeks ago. That kid is humming right now. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Two with Ms McGill Show. A quick word from our friends over at Iron Range Apparel. I always call it the gift buyer's paradise. So if you're looking for something for anybody, kids, wife, girlfriend, just not both at the same time, you want to go to Iron Range Apparel. They are the exclusive provider of the ODR outdoor rink clothing line. They have hats, jerseys, all kinds of swag, baseball caps, winter caps. So like I say, if you're looking for that perfect gift for somebody, Iron Range Apparel, it's in the Thunderbird Mall over in Virginia. All right. We're still here with Coach Grant Clafton. Far away, Rito.
Yeah. So we were getting into, our conversations with Greenway, and talking about how that you kind of came in at a great time to develop that program, and some really good youth teams coming through at the time. A couple of trips, that group now that was big, and a little foreshadow trip to the state tournament and Hockey Day in Minnesota. But a few years before that, I watched some battles, because my cousin was at the same age as Ben Trombley and Dante Lawson. They did a lot of summer hockey with those guys playing with the Iron Range Blast. Those groups played against each other, and back, whenever we have districts and regions with Iron Range, lots of times two teams from the Iron Range could make it onto the state tournament. And they made it to the state tournament as Pee-wees, both Greenway and Virginia. And then both teams made it to the state tournament. In Bantams, both Greenway and Virginia made it to those state tournaments. And both times Greenway made it on farther into the winner's bracket or farther on. But just a little bit of, I guess, the history of the group and those kids coming through, and the opportunity to see hey, this is going to be a fun time to take that program over, and an opportunity for you to continue developing players. So you had guys like Ben Trombley, and a special year where you got the host in Bemidji, or not the host, you got to go to Hockey Day in Minnesota, where Bemidji hosted, and you guys got to play there. How was Hockey Day in Minnesota?
Oh, it was a great experience. I mean, that was, in a lot of people's eyes, probably our chance to to play on, TV or FSN as a high school program, being that, losing to Hermantown, the 2 other years prior to go to the state tournament. And, it was an awesome experience for those kids. And I mean, that was really the time where our tournament, our season kind of turned around. I mean, we were 5-13, I think, going into Hockey Day. And, actually maybe we were 5-12, but Hockey Day made us 5-13 because we lost to Bemidji. And I believe after Hockey Day, we ran the table and didn't lose again until the state championship game.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a huge kind of start because, that was a fun event. It wasn't, obviously you want to win. I mean, we want to win, and, everybody wants to win, but we made it an event. We tried to make sure all the kids enjoyed it. I think, I hope, looking back, that most of the kids got to play and got an opportunity into that game, and something for them to remember. And yeah, after that, it just kind of lightning kind of struck, quite a few times in a row, and things worked out.
Well, it's not only was that the season in 18-19, or the first time since year 2000.
Yeah,
when Greenway made it
2002.
2002.
Oh no, 2001.
2001.
Yeah, where they made it back to the state tournament. And not only was it the first time since then they made it, but it was also the first time that, quote, a blue collar team had an opportunity in a legitimate single A team that's got low numbers and has to fight to put both of RC and JV squad together to actually knock off the juggernaut of Hermantown to go to the state tournament. And I remember watching, sitting at the Amsoil Arena, watching that section final game and watching Dante Lawson score that goal. And I got to tell you, growing up in Grand Rapids, it was always really difficult to cheer for the green team. But I remember cheering really hard, sitting there hoping that Greenway wins this game. And I jumped sitting at the drink rail and smacked my head on the top right up there because I was sitting in there. I think I was it wasn't the drink rail, was in the alumni room where the ceiling was short. And I jumped when they scored that goal. And that just goes to show you that so many people in the Iron Range in northern Minnesota were cheering for Greenway to win. And this was my first year back in Grand Rapids. I had already left Virginia. I was here as helping with the Bantam team here in Grand Rapids. That first year I was here. And I remember just so excited to watch and see Greenway win that game. So that feeling of winning that game, I saw the tears, I saw the smiles, I saw the excitement from all of the staff, the players. How does that feel to knock off the juggernaut that has been dominating Section 7A for a decade?
And actually, what were you thinking about going in? And then go into what Reed said. What were you thinking going into this one?
Going into the game?
Yeah.
What would you?
I was thinking, what I was really worried about was Denfeld, just getting past Denfeld, because they had beaten us during the season. Okay. And it was, we need to take care of them. And Dante had a special performance in that game too. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of got ready for Hermantown. And it's one of those things where you just throw your chips on the table and hope it kind of works out. And that group of kids was so resilient all year. I mean, we battled a lot of injuries. We had a really tough schedule. A lot of losses, as the old slap shot.
Yeah, a lot of losses.
But it was the most unique thing because they never quit. They never doubted. I mean, the leadership that we had from Dante and Christian and Ben and Nikolai and guys like that had been. Cam Lance was an extraordinary part of that team. I mean, as good as everybody played, without him, it just doesn't happen. And it was just resilient. So I wasn't thinking anything more than let's go give it a shot, and see what happens. And
what was practice like that week? Were they lose?
Practice was really interesting because I wasn't there. I had to go to work for a meeting the night before we played Hermantown. So I missed I think Surtees had him go for an hour, and loosened up and, you know, his good demeanor. I remember calling him on the way home and being like, how'd it go? And, you know, he's like, good. I mean, it was good. Everybody seemed relaxed, probably because I wasn't there. I mean, that's probably the best thing that can happen, really.
Yeah.
And, you know, Sir got him ready. And I do remember talking to him on the bench. I think we were down 2-1 or something like that. Right. And we were down 2-1 and we tied it, and it went into overtime, and it went into double overtime. And I remember looking at him and being like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I did not see this happening again. Like, to relive what we had just gone through the year before, to get all the way back here to the exact same point, and then you're just looking for a bounce at the end of the day. And if you watch the clip, Aaron Elich was skating down the side. He got kind of slashed.
Yep.
The stick comes out of his hands and he caught it and threw it on net. And Dante was right there to put it in, and that was kind of the end of it. And it was just a great experience for the kids, the community. You know, I mean, you know, people rag on Hermantown a little bit, but the reality is they have a outstanding program,
100%.
and that's why they continue to pound teams and have success. And you know, I've gotten to know a lot of those players that have gone through there over the years, and just you can't say enough about how great of kids they are, and they do it the right way there, as far as, you know, getting, you know, prepared, and they live and breathe hockey, and you know, they do it the right way, despite the crap that they get. I give them, you get, you know, we all give it. And a lot of it stems from, you know, jealousy and the fact that, you know, you'd love to have that, you know, and I think for us, you know, like for me personally, that experience that I got out of that more than anything was great reward for the Greenway program and those kids that did all that work to get to that point. You know, the players play, and they showed up, and they brought us there, you know. But for me, I always believed that we could beat them, like genuinely believed it. And I would get, well, great season, too bad you'll never go to the state tournament. Great season, too bad for those kids, you can't get by Hermantown. And it was just, you know, like, what do you do, you know? And I think the biggest part of me, it was like, you know what, I want to just shove it up their ass, you know. And I just, that was my mindset. Like, but the biggest thing that I got out of it was that if you actually genuinely believe, and you put the work in that those kids did, and you truly believe, and you don't fake it, you got a real chance. And you know what? I don't think it was anything more than any other game, that big game like that. I mean, you get a bounce, and it goes in. It could have went the other way a handful of times. Earlier, it could have went our way the year before a couple of times. You know, and
you got the right goaltending at the right time, and Logan Wright between the pipes. He was spot on that night. Yeah,
he was dialed in, and we needed him to put up 40. There's no question about it. He doesn't put up 40, we don't go. And he did that, and the rest is history. But it's what sports is supposed to be. Like, you play games for a reason. You know, and it happens in every single sport, every single year. You know, there's always an upset.
Yeah. And there's another piece to this too, that it comes out in your coaching style. It comes out in the type of person that you are. But I remember listening to, I don't know if it was an interview or a short presentation at the school afterwards, and people wanting to give you praise and say everything that you've done with the program. And I remember you just saying, you know, time out. Wait a second. Like, I want to acknowledge these people that put all the time in before I got here. And you mentioned Pat Geyer, you mentioned Bird Lawson, you mentioned all these guys that had worked with these kids through, and that would have been a really good opportunity for an arrogant coach to take all of the credit. And okay, look at me. I came in here and in a few short years, I take them to the state tournament, and the first thing you do is to hit the timeout button and say, I want to acknowledge these people because this trophy means as much to them and their time as it does to anybody else.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, when you get to high school, the players play, right? I mean, we did what we did because we had the players to do it, you know, for one. But, you know, I believe, you know, a big believer in, you know, when you're a high school coach and a head coach and so on and so forth, you're responsible for a program. And that means from mites to squirts to peewees to bantams all the way up. And I think that's where that is all bred and all started.
Yep.
And I had absolutely nothing to do with that. That was the Vekiches, the parents, you know, AJ, you know, guys like that, Chris Miller, you know, Art Ryla, guys like that really wanted the best for their kids and put the time in. And that was them. I mean, my role in that was nothing more than kind of being there at the right time and offering what I could and, you know, trying to keep the belief there. And, you know, I mean, I don't know if you were going to bring it up, but you talk about the article and that just got published on in the news thing.
Yeah, the Rink Live.
The reality of it is that the parents really can make or break the season. And I mean, you know, everybody's emotional and has, you know, some thoughts and would do things different, but you know, for the most part of it, you know, it was a pretty smooth sailing. And I mean, I think AJ Trombley was the most positive person I ever met. I mean, I remember talking to him after games and, you know, just another loss, you know, lost here, Ben's hurt, you know, it's almost like he kind of, you know, kept things going in a positive light. And he never lost the hope. And I feel like it's a reflection on his kids. And when parents have that positive attitude and give that, you know, you can do it, it bleeds through. And the parents are a huge part of the success of these teams.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to echo the same thing when, you know, well, for 2 comments on the section final here, we can move on. You guys contained beyond belief, but then, when they shove that microphone in your face and you had all that emotion, and it was, thanks, Pat Geyer, Last and other. I mean, you truly did that. So you kids, you'll be coaching someday. Take a chapter out of Coach Clapton's book here, and there's a lot of people to give praise to besides yourself. So
we'll touch on that at the end. I want to get a few more opinions on the old Larry Olam stuff that happened at Orno at the end here. But so looking at that was your trip to the state tournament and some phenomenal games. I remember, I think probably my most enjoyable game was it the semifinal game? You guys beat Mahtomedi in the semifinals. Was that who it was?
Yeah, that was a fun one.
That was the most enjoyable game for me to watch. And then ended up losing to St. Cloud Cathedral in the championship game, which I was destroyed at that point. I was actually wearing a green hat that day. I'm not going to lie to you. This was now for you listeners out there. I had not yet become a coach for GRG. Okay. I was still Grand Rapids Bantam AA coach. The next year after Greenway takes second, I was wearing green a little bit, a little excited because they did that. I was happy for them. And then I get asked to help with GRG. So that's kind of how that happens. And I'm okay with green now because I coached for a year with GRG. At any rate, losing in the state championship game and making a showing like that and putting Greenway back on the map. You coached for how many more years before you hung it up in Greenway?
I did one more.
One more year.
Yep, I did one more. And then, you know, life kind of started for me.
Well, let's real quick. Let's go back to any stories, anything you really remember. I mean, because I played in the state tournament, it's a whirlwind, you know, anything you really remember, you know, of course that the championship game was not without controversy with the replay.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly remember that. What I really remember is going up 1-0 and getting a 5-minute power play. And for whatever reason, my thought process was we're going to just stick it to them and try to go up 3-4-0 and hammer it down with our power play. And it was the biggest mistake I probably could have made. obviously at that point I was not smart enough to figure it out, but looking back, if I would have been able to do that again, I would have put, the big unit out for a minute and then took 3 to rest them, because that would have been the chance to rest, because they'd played pretty much the whole 2 games before that. And I mean, that's 3rd game, and then put them out for the last 30 to try to get something out of it. And, but I mean, we had momentum, we were riding it, and I thought, let's try to stick a dagger into them and run away with this. And pretty much tried to win the game in the first period. And that was on me. So, it happens, and lesson learned.
Anything else on that?
No. Well, what about you brought up a name, Cam Lance? I've had a chance to get to know that kid, but what a character.
Yeah, he's
a bunch of one-liners, huh?
Yeah, I golfed with him, not with him, but I saw him for the first time in a while at Penn Gilly golf tournament this spring, and it's good to catch up with him. I think he's a pilot now.
Oh,
yeah, I think him and his brother are both pilots.
So he gave me a story. He said, Coach Glass is the best coach I ever had, but watch out when the hat got turned. Look out. Is that true?
I don't know if I got it turned, but I go like this, and
the hat turn and the head tilt.
Oh, okay.
I know the hat turn and the head tilt because I've seen it. We've seen it from across the rink. I've seen it from across the bench, but the hat up and the head back, and we got props. That's Grant.
That's the problem.
Yep.
Okay.
So
coping mechanism.
So moving on, you stepped down from Greenway. At this point in time, you're deep into the elite league. You've been doing it here for a couple of years. You took over for Pat Geyer, and that's kind of your niche to staying involved with high school hockey. Aside from that, you started up the last couple of years. You started up the athletic peak performance.
Oh, this past season, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The treadmill program that you run, where we've got treadmill, dry land, and whatnot, and I get the pleasure of helping out with that with you and Brad Clayton. You got that going on. You've got your summer camps that you run, your quick skills camps that you run. Been doing that here the last. I think you said you've been doing it almost 20 some years, where you've been running 22 years.
Yeah, I think this is my 22nd year of doing that. And it's funny because Jake and Avery Peterson, Jake Bischoff and Avery, that group of kids was the first group I had. I had just graduated high school, and they were, it's end of mites, early squirts, I think it was. And then kind of got to know them all the way up. And they did everything that, with my stuff for, our camps and in the summer all the way through. And now Avery's a huge part of them. I mean, Avery worked them.
Avery's an awesome coach.
Yeah. Jake and Avery and Serdy, and Pete Miskovich are all helping with that. Pete was also the coach of that Bantam team that year. So it was kind of fun to, kind of coming back to where he started with the same group of guys. And I mean, the whole focus point behind it is, so much is said about, specializing and doing all this stuff, but I think a lot of it is in the training portion of it. I mean, AAA to a degree is fine, but if you want to really get over the hump and put some time into it, I think you do need to do a little bit of extra work. And I think there's no problem playing baseball, but at the end of the day, if you want to be a hockey player and that's what you want to do, then I think by the time you're in, peewees, bantams, I think it's at the very least you should get getting some shooting and start shooting and instead of watching TV, go shoot 100 pucks and call it a day. And I think what we're trying to do, whether it continues on or not, and I hope it does, is provide a local place for kids to go to get quality instruction without having to go to the cities, and being able to do it at a fair and appropriate price. And I think that's a big part, because I think that we need to, being from a small town, small area, small hockey community, I think you got to be really inclusive and make sure that everybody's getting that opportunity to better themselves and get going. And I think that, just the way society is right now, I mean, when a stick costs $340, I mean, I don't think I'm playing.
No, to be honest with you, I can't, I will never spend that much money on a stick. I can't afford to. I don't know how people do it, but
I mean, but they find a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think
they'll mow lawns or something. I don't know.
And the thing is everybody wants what's best for their kids. I mean, and becoming a parent 3 times now, you realize that you want what's best for your kids and you're willing to do anything you can for them. And that's great. But I feel like hockey is the one sport that really uses that against you.
Mhm.
And there's so many different things that you can throw money at and whatnot, and just hope that it all works out. And I think it's really dangerous in the fact that it's like, investing in the stock market. I mean, if you buy stock with $1,000, I mean, you're not putting it in there to lose. You're putting it in there to gain and show a return, right?
Is that what we're doing, Raj?
Well, you're open.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah.
But my point is like, you have parents that are giving the world to their kids.
Yeah.
They're giving the finances to their kids. And, I think, are all of them doing it for the experience, or is there an ulterior motive at the end of the day that they think that is going to happen or they deserve?
Right.
And if you do the work, you deserve it.
Yeah.
But it's goal setting. I mean, I'm here, I want to do this. Well, what are you going to do in the gap in between?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing that, not everybody knows or everybody does. And it's causes frustration.
Right.
All right, let me get a quick ad read in here. Our new partners, Fortune Bay Resort and Casino. So make plans today to visit Fortune Bay Resort and Casino on beautiful Lake Vermilion. Fortune Bay has 172 rooms and a smoke-free resort, indoor pool, full-service marina, RV park, world-class golf, several dining options, a bar, 24/7 gaming. Visit fortunebay.com for more details. And like I said, plan your trip today. I want to go back to a story I heard about Elite League. I've heard, Scott Brunovich is not a guy in the media much, but I think it was a Hockey Hub interview a couple years ago. But anyway, you're coaching in the Elite League. Him and another guy or two are locker rooming in like a closet, not in the main locker room. Game starts. Where's Scott Brunovich? Do you remember that?
I don't.
Okay, he tells the story that they were in like some sort of closet or something, and the game starts, and all of a sudden they're like, gosh, it's been a while. We haven't heard a buzzer. I don't know if the buzzer didn't go off, and they open the door, and you guys are already on that. I mean, the game started, so they kind of well, maybe you never knew. Maybe you never know. Okay.
And that doesn't surprise me about Scotty, but he's one of those guys that, you just kind of you get frustrated with him because he knows how to push your buttons, but at the same time, he's in 10th grade or 11th, whatever he was in, and he's smarter than you are. And as an adult, you're thinking, my God, he's knows so much more about it than I do right now.
How do
now you're trying to fake it, like
how do I stop?
And it's just like you throw your hands up and just let him go because he's just that gifted of a player and great kid. And that was one of the, as far as like, different years, that was memorable because we had a phenomenal team that year. I mean, we had Dylan Sandberg, Scott Prunovich. I'm going to miss a ton. Paul Kepke. We had Gavin and Blake McLaughlin. Alex Adams, I believe, was on the team. I mean, Grant Loven and Mitchell Madsen left, and we replaced them. And, they had a development team at the time for kids. We were so stacked that actually that was the year Dylan Sandberg didn't make it. Micah Miller didn't make it. Like they were on the development team, so they were playing in the league. Coming up as
the E2 team or whatever they call it.
And the other guy that was on that team was Minnetonka kid. He plays for the Rangers now. Did play for the Rangers.
Is that Brink?
No, farther back. It's embarrassing. I don't know this. He's a stud,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a really good team. Casey Middlestat was in the league that year.
Yeah.
that was a fun time. You know,
So you'll do it this fall?
yeah, yep. Gonna do it this fall, and that'll be my fix for the year. And
So your connection still with the game, and we'll get back to this here. We touched on the quick skills camps. We touched on the treadmill program that you run through Athletic Peak Performance, and your elite league stuff. You said, kind of after you were done at Greenway, it was kind of when life started. So you got married. You're at kid number 3. You're busy, and it's life as a husband and a dad. And I'm gonna say, not a retired coach, high school coach. I'm gonna say that you're sitting here not coaching high school hockey, but I'm going to say that you probably never, it's not going to be never say never. I think maybe there'll be an opportunity in the future where you'll think about it again.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that an opportunity will come up somewhere down the road when the time is right, and
Timing is everything.
timing's a big part of it. And, I miss it. I miss the kids. I miss, the locker room stuff. I miss the preparation for the game. I think that's what I miss the most, is the preparation for games and practices. I think that's the biggest part of it,
Yeah.
But I mean, if that opportunity comes, great. But if it doesn't, I mean, I'm content with it. I mean, I told Avery and Jake, I'm hoping that it works out perfect. My son Noah, my oldest, he's in trouble. He's going to have to deal with me. Avery has a child that's the same age as my other child, right? So I'm hoping that I can dump him off. And so I'm only going to have to hit, one kid and my own, as far as Noah goes, and then they can deal with the other ones. And I won't spend 9 years in the Mike program.
Yeah. So I got a couple of dads here sitting to my right. How is it to be in the position that you're in? You're not coaching at the moment, but you're in husband and dad mode.
It's busy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to ask my wife. She'd give you a different answer. Probably frustrate her more times than not. But it's busy. It's a grind. I mean, I have 3 boys under 3 years old, 3, 16 months, and a newborn. And yeah, it's
challenging and rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's funny because you always hear, oh, they grow up so fast. You're gonna miss it. And I'm thinking, I cannot wait to tell these guys.
I
want to go golfing on Father's Day with them. I want to do things like that. You know what I mean? Bring them to the rink, do that. And the other day, like, you get these memories on, the albums in your phone or whatever. And I was like, I do miss that, because it's like a captured good moment, but at the same time, like, if it would have been a video that popped up
5 seconds later, something else
you kind of think about it. But yeah, it's obviously the best time of your life. You never think you'd love anything that much.
Well, I can't speak from experience. And my wife and I don't have kids, but they got a couple of dads that you got 4 kids, he's got 3, and well, you said it's challenging and rewarding at the same time. So go ahead, Puka.
I got one last, we can wrap up here. Obviously, St. Cloud alumni, we talked about that. How proud are you and impressed are you with Grand Rapids alumni Jack Peer?
Well, Todd was my coach in Pee Wees, my first year of Pee Wees. He coached when I was in high school. He was a tremendous guy. In fact, and then when I came back to Rapids, I coached Rapids Pee Wees with Jack was on the team, and he was just a phenomenal kid, just an unbelievable kid, and just great kid to be around. And obviously, his hockey, that's the thing. I mean, everybody focuses on, their ability, right? He's obviously gifted but just a fantastic family and great kid he is. And I mean, if you ever want a demonstration on how to act as a hockey parent, I would take a good solid look at his mom and dad.
Really? That's interesting. You bring up, Jack I did an interview with Jack just shortly after he won Mr. Hockey, and kind of posted that out there with the Grand Rapids page to throw that out there. And I remember having a conversation with him about, hey, you had a pretty awesome career, Mr. Hockey, you're going on to play at St. Cloud, and who would you like to thank? And he went through his coaches, and obviously his high school coach at the time with Wade, and talked about his parents and his grandma and grandpa on both sides. And then he said, and I can't say enough as well about Grant. He said, I remember when I was a peewee, and Grant would call up and say, I'm coming over, get your skates, we're going to Southwest. And many hours of away from practice, but just going out in the outdoor rink. And again, this says volumes about the extra thing that a coach is going to do to make players better. And
yeah, that was probably more fun for me than it was for him, because I hadn't been to the outdoor rink for a long time, and that was fun to do. But yeah, I used to call Todd and just say, hey, does he want to go? And yeah, come pick him up. Here's the part that he didn't tell you, because he's too good of a guy. He's a peewee. He's a first year peewee. At that point, I'm gotta be really close to 33. He was he would one-on-one. It was like playing another,
Already at that point.
Yeah. And it's like I can't let him know how good he is, but at the same time, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just was that good,
Well, we'll wrap a couple things up here, but I just wanted to, there's been a couple of things that have come up in the area, Minnesota hockey here in the last week. Number one, we talked earlier about this. We just kind of gave a little bit of a foreshadow on that earlier, that a player that you had an impact on and got a chance to coach as a young player and through Bantams, just spends a phenomenal year with the Hershey Bears. Hunter Shepard wins a Calder Cup. He's won two national championships with the Bulldogs, has now won the Calder Cup in the American Hockey League, and wins the MVP for the Calder Cup championship.
And boy, Shep.
So a shout out to Shep, and just your thoughts about Shep and being able to coach him.
Another great kid. Arguably the hardest worker, most competitive kid I've ever met. No question about it. I remember that year in Bantams. It is another great family. I remember shooting on him in early birds, and I hit him right in the shoulder. And I was taking, back then I had a average shot, but for a Bantam it was probably fairly.
It's kind of hard.
Yeah. And I was taking him from the top of the circle, and I remember it came in for early birds because parents are bringing him to school, and I remember his mom, she was not pleased. She didn't yell at me, but she
wasn't happy.
Gave me that look.
Give it a look, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually ran into her for the first time at Target a while ago, and that's the first thing I thought about. It was like, oops. Yeah, I do, but yeah. Another great family, great kid. I mean, talk about a kid that deserves everything that he's gotten, everything that he's going to get. I don't know enough about it. I gotta believe he's going to get a shot.
Well, I can't imagine that he wouldn't. And this is a free agency year after you just win and get MVP.
Nice.
It's great timing for Shep. And if I'm wrong, comment. But I think I heard that a couple of days ago that he's a free agent. So I think that's going to help in his career. So
Larry
Olam, girls coach at Orono, gets badgered by parents early in the season. I mean, it says after taking second in the girls' state tournament, losing to Warroad. Some parents talk about, and I think it was a real small parent group, but it doesn't matter how big or small the parent group is, they're giving him crap about some of the things that they wanted more out of him. And he kind of got tired of hearing it. So he told the parents, hey, you know what, then maybe I won't coach. And he sends an email and says that. And they take that email as a resignation letter and they send it to the athletic director. It wasn't a formal letter. They didn't act on anything until mid-June. And he's contacting with the athletic director, who has now since left there, I believe.
Yeah.
He's contacted him in between saying, hey, that wasn't a formal resignation, blah, blah, blah. I still would like to be the coach. That was a shot off the bow to those parents that, I could leave. You might have to go through this with somebody else. They said, no, we're going to keep pushing. You said you're not coaching. Turns out that the support wasn't there. He doesn't get to keep his job. He's gone. because of parent pressure after 1 year and winning a ton of games and taking second in the state, we got some parent issues in Orono. And what are your thoughts? And I'm sure all of us could hit the bleep button a lot of times, but
I would say my thoughts are outrageous is what I think. And, you know, I read the article. That's all I know of it.
Yeah.
What was ever in the article, that's what I take out of it. And a couple things that I read is if those were the reasons that you didn't promote the kids enough, I don't even know what to say to that. Like like to me, it's an education piece where you need to educate them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what does that mean? You know, promoting a player. I mean, you're not, what is he supposed to do? That's my biggest thing. And like, this would be my thoughts to that. No coach gets a player to go somewhere. No player, no coach turns a kid into Scott Prunovich or whatever kid, like, or Adam Johnson or Jake Bischoff or Avery. You don't do that. The kids do that. Like, no coach does that, right? And to be honest with you, the way it goes is, as a coach and the kids say, hey, I'd like to try out with so-and-so, the guy probably knows someone, and this is boys hockey. I don't know much about girls or the opportunities after, but, you know, hey, I want to, you know, try out. Okay, well, you can call and you can get a tryout. And is that promoting them because the tryout came? How about all the other calls that the coach has made trying to get that kid on the radar that some of these guys just, they're not interested? I mean, that's part of it too. You never know about that part of it. The conversations that you're pushing players, you know, to get them that, and it doesn't happen. But the reality of it is if the coach at the next level isn't calling you, isn't, you know, calling the high school coach, isn't coming after you,
they're not interested.
They're not that interested.
Especially these days. There's so much
crazy. There's videos. There's tons of different leagues.
Nobody gets overlooked, right?
No, I mean, and it's just like that is so. I mean, I do have a lot more to say about that. If that's an actual reason, I mean, I like I said, I don't know enough about it. I read the article. I don't want to make assumptions, but if that's what it is, I don't understand how that can be the complaint. You're not pushing kids. Well, whatever, maybe he's not any good. You know, you want to know, like, you know why my career ended? Not because I got hurt in low-level minor league hockey. It's because I wasn't good enough. Like,
exactly.
And I mean, if you can't, like...
You're trying to get the coach fired?
No, but I mean, actually, Gino was the player assistant.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
But,
he would have been a good one.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, you have to have some reality that it just might not be you know what I mean? It could be you.
Maybe the kid doesn't have it. And
yeah,
I hate to say that. If you don't want to crash or dash kids' dreams. It's like, this is your dream, but at some point in time, there has to be that conversation. Like, you either going to be getting phone calls from teams or you're not going to be getting phone calls.
Well, I think the biggest thing is honesty. I mean, and the thing is I think if you're honest with the kids and you're honest with the parents, they might not like you. They might not like what you have to say, but at least there's a respect. And,
yeah, right.
You know, I've kind of always gone by, you know, my own life. Like, I really don't care if you like me. I do care that you respect me and the fact that, you know, I'm doing what I do believe is genuinely best.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
And I just, again, it's emotional, but that particular thing is just mind-boggling.
Well, it's going to be tough, I think, right now, because they took some opportunities away from the Orono girls program. That it was a fantastic year, and both Larry Olam and Izzy Marvin played together as youth players up in Warroad. Warroad is hosting Hockey Day in Minnesota. Orono was supposed to play a rematch, first versus second rematch of the state championship during Hockey Day, and nobody's saying that this is the reason why Orono got yanked from that idea, but I'll tell you, Minnesota Wild and the people that run Hockey Day in Minnesota, they're not dumb. So the story was Larry Olam and was Izzy Marvin and Childhood World are going to come back and play against each other. And there was the storyline there. And since that storyline was gone, and there's a little controversy behind why he's not there, let's just not have Orono come. And they bring in Lakeville North. And I hate to say that about Lakeville North because great opportunity, but I don't think Lakeville North was the first option for it. I think Orono was.
Yeah.
So it took opportunities away. And again, it's because of, let's just back up for a second. There's a billion great parents that are out there, and you can do as much as you can to be a great hockey parent and continue to do things that you do and keep doing what you're doing for kids. If you get it as a hockey parent, it only takes a couple parents or a couple groups of parents to put a dark stain on a program. And it's probably a really small group from what it sounds like, but there's going to be some makeup and some catch up from that Orono disaster that happened there. And I hope they can land a good coach and put that behind them, because that is it's an organization that has a lot of players. They got a lot of money. They do it the right way until it gets to certain things like this, and parents get involved, and ouch.
Yeah. We better wrap up. He's got 3 little ones.
I've been looking at the clock. I'm going to get yelled at.
Yeah.
We're going to get out of here. So by the way, for the young people, Larry Olam is the all-time assist leader for your Minnesota Gophers. So, all right. We want to thank very much Coach Grant Clafton. Just a couple real quick tidbits. Mike Antonovich, a little bit of a medical deal last week. Sounds like he's recovered. So congratulations, Mike. Of course, we've interviewed Mike in the past. You can look back through the feeds to find that. And congratulations to the aforementioned Scott Perunovich, signed a contract this week. So he's going back to the Blues. Please leave a comment. Love your comments, especially on this Larry Olam thing. Might be a good thing to comment on. Please share. Sharing is caring. Goatsportsmediallc at gmail.com if you want to contact us privately. Find Tea with Ms. McGill on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcast, T McGill on Twitter. And if you're looking for us on YouTube and Facebook, it's Goat Sports Media LLC. Merch in the back. Get a hold of us as always. And of course, thank the greatest partners on earth, the Ring Sports Bar and Grill, Iron Range Apparel and ODR Apparel, Fortune Bay Resort and Casino, Aspire Heating and Control, Iron Range Goalie Academy. Lori Larson, I am Puka. Get out there and be your dream. You're tuned to the Tea with Ms. McGill Show.